Hello there. Welcome to a hypothetical, a question, a theory as part of the Xindi series. Before we get started, please like, share, subscribe, comment down below on your thoughts, alternative ideas, or whatever you've got in mind. And this one is the mirror universe Xindi. The ones that specifically would have cohabited the same universe as the Terran Empire. Now, we know that the Xindi conflict of some description happened in the mirror universe, but we know practically nothing about it. The one thing we can say is it would have been very different. The Terrans, for a start, were far more developed militarily than Starfleet of the Prime Universe. They had a bigger fleet, they'd already conquered large amounts of territory, and were far more aggressive. Starfleet's response, Archer's response to the Xindi, was an aggressive one. Now, if you think that his response was aggressive, now imagine how aggressive Captain Forrest's was, Admiral Black, and the Terran Emperor. So, this video is going to be my theory as to what happened, as there isn't really any lore other than we know that the NX-01 battlecruiser engaged with a fleet of Xindi vessels in a similar way to the NX-01 starship. So, let's put it in perspective. The Terran Empire by the 2150s had been expanding in all directions. It already included Denobulans, Vulcans, Andorians, Tellarites, and likely a few others. The Terran Empire was continuing to expand and was becoming increasingly aggressive, if not a little bloated and overextended, but that for right now doesn't matter. Their loose control over this federation of races that they have conquered is tenuous, but they do have imperial control over them. Now, we do know that these races still retain their own navies, so Terran control and dominance isn't absolute, but certainly they're in a position to dictate terms to these races and tell them what to do and control their fortunes. Now, going along in the background in that universe, we got to assume that the same sort of events are happening with the Xindi. They live inside the Delphic Expanse. A race of trans-dimensional beings are converting that region of space to be more habitable for themselves, and just like in the Prime Universe, they know that in the distant future, humans will stop them. Now, these are likely not the same trans-dimensional beings from the Prime Universe, but let's assume that they're relatively the same, culturally. Now, whether these future humans that will stop them are the Terran Empire, which we know by the 26th century had collapsed, but the Terrans had regained their freedom again from the Alliance by this point. Whether they reformed the Empire or created some kind of confederation or republic or something, we don't know. Whatever they turned into, which in novelizations was not an imperial force, they did sort of create a mirror version of the Federation to a degree. Let's assume that they did something like that, and that is going to be stopping these transdimensional beings from fulfilling their plan. So they know they've got to stop the Terrans, so they convince the Xindi to build their weapon to attack Earth. Now, just like in the Prime timeline, the weapon materializes in orbit of Earth, the first probe, to launch its attack on Earth. But remember, the Terrans are far more developed. Unlike the Starfleet of the Prime Universe, they detect the probe. Earth has orbital defense systems, armed battle stations, patrol ships, surface weapons, minefields, and likely things like weaponized satellites as well as patrol craft around Earth. The probe is shot down instantly. It doesn't get a chance to fire. Like in the main universe, it collapses through the atmosphere, the Xindi pilot is recovered, and also it is alluded to that the temporal Cold War is also happening in that universe, as Archer references recovering a Suliban cloaking device. And we know in the Prime Universe that Suliban only had that technology because of contact with the future, so let's assume that's also happening. So their universe's Captain Forrest gets a similar warning from a future time agent or whatever he is, who's controlling the Suliban, and tells him it was the Xindi. It's also entirely plausible that the Terrans had already reached the Delphic Expanse. Remember, they knew everything the Vulcans knew. Maybe they already knew the Xindi and they recognized the reptilian pilot. We don't know. For whatever reason, Starfleet then decides, well, they attacked Earth, that's unacceptable, and they launch a counter-offensive, but this one's not going to be just the Enterprise going to investigate. The Terrans, they're going to send a battle fleet. The Enterprise, it might not be several NX-class cruisers, maybe it's one, maybe it's two, but you're going to get some Intrepid types or Deltas going with them. Maybe even an Andorian Kamari-class warship is commandeered to come and back them up. The Terrans enter the Expanse. They have an engagement with the Klingons in the Expanse, which we know happened in their universe as well. once in there, their response to the Xindi is completely different. Their ships are faster, they're more powerful, they're more aggressive. They begin torturing everyone they encounter, bombarding planets, destroying any ship, killing anyone, torturing anyone for information, extracting every bit of information about the Xindi they can find. Where are they? Who are they? What are their capabilities? The Terrans quickly learn who and what the Xindi are. They capture a Xindi from a mining planet. They torture him. They kill the miners. They torture the administrator. They find out where the Xindi are coming from. The Terran Armada then dispatches to go and find Xindi worlds. They come across Xindi planets. They come across the testing grounds at Azati Prime. They begin simply bombarding any planet they encounter. The reptilian ships are no match for a Terran NX-class battlecruiser and are easily swept aside. The Terrans destroy multiple installations. Maybe they have a problem with the Andorians trying to steal the Xindi weapon, thinking, well, we can use this to throw you off. We'll take this back to Andoria and we'll use it as a weapon to fight off the Terrans. So Shran and his combat cruiser may be destroyed or driven away. The Terrans continue on their merry way. They begin to orbitally bombard any Xindi world they encounter, killing millions in the process. This forces the hand of the more timid Xindi races, such as the Arboreals and the Primates, to sue for peace. They explain to the Terrans what's happened, the sphere builders, etc., etc. So, under Forest instructions, they want to take revenge on the sphere builders. They're not going to allow them to succeed. So, Starfleet works to destroy the spheres, to therefore get rid of the sphere builders. It forges an alliance with the lesser Xindi races to defeat the more belligerent insectoids and reptilians, which is why we see in the armed engagement where the NX-01 was fighting with the Xindi, we do note that Arboreal ships were actually attacking other Xindi vessels. So at the very least, Arboreals and Aquatics maybe were definitely working with the Terrans. Maybe the ISS Enterprise was the only ship to come back out of the Delphic Expanse. As I said, they probably only took escort vessels with them, maybe Warp Delta, something like that, which is another reason they would accommodate this idea of an alliance with other Xindi races. They get the Xindi to devolve into a civil war. By proxy, the Terrans then destroy the spheres, collapse the Expanse in order to drive out the sphere builders from their universe, and therefore remove that threat to the Terran people and their empire. In the meantime, they make a secret alliance with one of the Xindi, probably the Primates, as they are the most tolerable to the Terrans' eyes, being the most near-human of them, to make them the dominant Xindi race. And in exchange, they will use the Primates to dominate the other Xindi, effectively folding the Xindi into the Terran Empire, at least as a Dominion puppet state, rather than maybe a fully conquered people. With the Xindi threat eliminated, their super weapon destroyed, the Terran Empire is saved, Archer is praised, Forrest is praised as heroes of the Empire. They're awarded all kinds of medals for the Emperor, but there is a side effect from this. That little nugget of vulnerability the Terrans have been seen to have. The various engagements with the Xindi, the losses of ships and materials and manpower to launching this expedition into the Expanse, perhaps emboldened some of the races the Terrans have conquered, such as the Andorians, who are naturally aggressive people anyway, plus their Vulcan fellow subjects, to rebel, causing the very rebellion we see a few years later, which the ISS Enterprise was part of, but would ultimately be destroyed in the Battle of the Tholians, recovering the USS Defiant to fight the rebels and save the Empire once again. So that's my hypothetical on what may have happened in the Mirror Universe engagement with the Xindi. It certainly wouldn't have been as peaceable as when Archer took the NX-01 starship into the Expanse, and although that was hardly a peaceful expedition, it certainly wouldn't have been on the same level. What do you think in the comments below? Is this the way the Terrans would have dealt with it? Would they have done it some other way? And if you have a better idea, let me know in the comments below, and let's bring this video to an end. I just want to take this moment to thank you for watching that video. If you liked what you saw, please check out my social links in the description box below to Instagram and Twitter and others, and also is down there a link to my Patreon page where you can support this channel and the others as I try to grow this franchise and do this more regularly. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you for watching, and bye bye.